Hello and welcome along to another week of Empowered Leadership Discussions. Tienie, hello, welcome along.
Hi, Kirsty. Thank you. Yeah, looking forward. And I'm excited that we're back into the swing of this again.
Absolutely. And can I share for those watching visually, if something exciting that's happened because we want to talk,
Yes.
we've actually got our book. We've got our book. How exciting.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you didn't listen to last week's, we've restarted our podcast, our live podcast edition, but this is the small but mighty edition based on the book that we've got coming out in the middle of July. We've literally just got our final launch date, which we're going to be communicating, but we're going to put a link below this episode, wherever you get it from, whether it's in your show notes or on LinkedIn, where you can actually just put your email if you're interested in getting access to that book as soon as it's launched, and we're running it at a little bit of a discount for the first couple of days. But yeah, so this week is our first proper week back chatting about the topics, and everything we're going to cover is going to be related to what's in our small but mighty book. So it's built on our business growth model, and it's going to be a little bit of a different format this time. So this is the first week that we're going to do this. So we mentioned last week we're going to be inviting guests on, so you're going to start to see maybe a few more people joining us as well. But also what we thought we would do is bring the questions and dilemmas that we have with our clients regularly, because that is, you'll be able to see then how we support clients and also hear what other people are going through as well. It's not just you, because the challenges that small businesses go through when they're going through growth, change, they tend to be quite similar. So hopefully you'll be able to get something from it. So today's question, Tinie, where we're starting from, is the thing that we see quite often when people go through change is people aren't sure where the business is heading or their role in it anymore.
Yeah. It's the uncertainty of, I just want to deliver my craft in this business, and I'm not necessarily worried about what other people are doing. I just want to come and deliver my craft is one approach that people have. And then there are other people that want to be part of a bigger picture and have a purpose. And the orientation is moving towards having a purpose for work. And we see that happening more often where, what are we going to do in the business? What are we trying to achieve? What is the role that I'm playing in that whole achievement aspect of it? So that's kind of two schools of thought around what you said.
And I think that question comes from, so this is the things we hear from people that we're coaching, or even from leaders, but more likely to be staff in the business, of when you go through change, it creates a level of uncertainty, doesn't it? Of when people are doing the status quo day in, day out, they kind of know what they're doing, they know where the business is heading. But when there's any kind of significant change or growth, it creates uncertainty, which then causes people to kind of stop and go, oh, what does this mean for me? And maybe if the communication hasn't been clear, or maybe you haven't been communicated to because the leaders or owners haven't figured it out yet, or just not communicated it, it creates a little bit of, where do I fit in this? Where are we going? Do I still want to be part of it? So if we kind of put that question into the middle of, I don't know where the business is going or my role in it, where would we take people from that? Like, what would we start to explore? And you've already shared like two potential responses from people for that.
Yeah, and something else just also popped into my head from a creating a collaborative environment where we're working together on something, and the energy that comes from something like that is also what business leaders are looking for. And then also, it's for the small business owner or the small to medium enterprise that is now starting to scale and getting busier. The founder most likely wants to get into the doing and stay in the doing, and not necessarily look up and create a strategy where everybody is aligned and going into a particular space. So it's also the bit of a release and conversations we have with founders or CEOs or managing directors as to how do you release and create a strategy for the team that you're working with. And so I suppose it starts there, is to, find out from them what it is that they're feeling might be missing. What is it that they've already created? What is it that is written potentially on a wall but isn't practiced? How are they measuring those things? And finding that starting point to have a more meaningful discussion as to, let's do a collaborative creation of a particular outcome that'll serve your purpose.
And just as you were talking there, you made me think, because what almost needs to happen is a recalibration, isn't it? Of like, when people aren't sure where they're heading or what their role is, that could be a leader, that could be an owner, that could be a founder that's kind of stepped more into leadership strategy versus doing where they've always been. And there's almost a recalibration needs to intentionally happen through that growth, because if they just float along, and what we talk about a little bit in that book, interestingly, you just thought you made me think about it, is we'll figure it out as we go. Like, we hear a lot, like, oh, we'll figure that out later. We'll sort that out when we get there, right? And when we float along like that, we're floating along with no intention, no purpose, no direction of travel, and that will keep a business almost going around in circles. And the growth is then down to luck versus intention. So I suppose what we would encourage people to do, because obviously when we work with people, we take them through this, but those listening can still do this for themselves and their team, is just to stop and recalibrate, isn't it? Of like, where are you going?
Yeah.
And how have you communicated that?
And it's, what's happening now. And, sometimes it's as simple as that, do you go to work and you walk and you go home at night and you say, oh, I love today? Or do you go to work and you say, I'm just doing what I need to do. There's a paycheck at the end of the month. Or are you saying, it's Tuesday, and what happens on Tuesday is this, and I dread that every time I go into the office. And so what are those consistent patterns or noises you're hearing from people? And even yourself as the leader in that business, and how do we help answer the question where people can shift into the, that was a good day today, and what are we putting in place for that to happen? Whether it's improved communication, whether it's a cohesive direction that we travel, whether it's words that mean something to me from a belief system and values perspective. And so all of those things are things that play a part, that are the unspoken things that you're speaking about. We'll get to that tomorrow. We'll get to that later, which are the things that impede success and growth.
Because what's the risk, right? Why do we need to, why does it matter if someone's sitting thinking that in the workplace, right? If you're sitting thinking it, your team or whoever it is in that small organization, why does it matter? And it's that feeling of, if you don't know what you bring to the table, you don't know your purpose, you don't know why you're there, the commitment and the level of impact and performance that you'll bring is hugely diminished, right? And then becomes the real risk, if this is an ongoing, of disengaged members of the team, almost flight risk. Are they going to go and find somewhere where they belong and made to feel they belong, know why they're there? And we know, and people listening will know, small businesses, everyone matters, everyone counts, everyone has a real part to play. And whilst that might need redefining as you grow, if we don't redefine it, it can be quite detrimental to the team.
Yeah. I spoke to a couple of leaders over the years, and discretionary effort is the biggest thing in getting folks to work together. We all know that if we don't want to go and do a piece of work today, we deliver a 40% mediocre piece of work. for some folk who are just on the normal run of mill. But if you love and are excited about what you're doing, you're adding at least 10% more effort in the performance and delivery of that piece of work, which is the discretionary effort that you choose to add and bring to that experience or environment that you're working in. And I've spoken to a couple of people who say, let's not even worry about discretionary effort. We just want people to be excited about what we do, which is great if what you're creating doesn't align to that excitement. And so it's how do we discover what it is that people need, what do people want, what will facilitate additional discretionary effort, all of those things. And it starts with having a discussion with your team, having a conversation, helping almost co-create those values, the belief system, the vision, the direction you want to travel in.
Because I was going to say that even sometimes if you don't know where the business is heading and you might have gone through some growth quickly, like whether that's investment, grant funding, just a massive project come in or a contract got over the line, and you might be in the firefighting stage of delivery, figuring it all out, creating, like actually doing the do, right? You might be thinking, well, that's great, but I don't have the time, I don't have the capacity, I can't take my foot off the pedal, like all hands like on deck at the minute. Even just being able to communicate to your team, I see and hear you, I get that. Look, we are in the absolute pits of this, like we need to just get through, but just know, like we're in this together and we're going to figure this out as we go. And at some point, we will be coming up for breath and going, how can we manage this to be more sustainable? How are we going to do this going forward? But even sometimes just being that really open, transparent, vulnerable leader by saying, I don't know either, let's figure it out together, creates a whole different energy from the team, doesn't it?
Whole different energy. And make no mistake, when we're setting up businesses or we're scaling an already established business, the lines are blurry from a role perspective. And when things get tough and we've all got to foot to the pump and we need to get things done, I help accounts, or I help process sales, or I go into manufacturing and I roll up my sleeves and paint the floor, or whatever's needed for that to move. But it's how I feel about the person that's leading this, or my line manager, and the involvement and the inclusion that I feel to be able to go and deliver that. And it's okay for the lines to be blurry within a role perspective. And knowing that that's okay, and you're not being judged for it. So there's quite a few little elements that come to play when we get ourselves into that situation.
And also, just to add that layer of it, it's so you feel like you Tinie might feel okay with the blurred lines and might feel okay with getting involved in all of that. But equally, we might have people who actually like to know the lines are solid. We have people who don't like change. We have people who actually, this is in their head. If we don't give them the narrative of the facts and what's actually happening, they will fill in the blanks themselves. And that might end in a place where isn't necessarily helpful. That's when the rumour mill starts and everyone's gossiping in the tea room. And whereas actually, if we can help those people recognize, it's almost feeling safety in the discomfort and the mess, isn't it? Of like, we doing all we can and being transparent about that. But also as managers and leaders, recognizing everybody operates a little bit different in uncertainty and in change and in like that messy middle of growth.
Yeah. And don't underestimate just asking. So how would you like us to solve this? And with the craft and skills that you bring to this, what's going to be helpful for you to know what's next in this next phase of our growth as a business? And sometimes founder owners are protective of direction and what's next and the future, and which doesn't help the people that are actually delivering some of the work for you. And the more transparent we can get, I think also the better for some teams.
But we're not asking people to empty their dirty laundry into the team, right? We're asking people to show them the bit of the past that they need to see for them to operate effectively. Something you've just said there, which is something that I genuinely do so regularly, like more regularly than I actually thought until you've just said it, is people will come to me and we'll be coaching or be working through a challenge, and they sit and trying to second guess somebody else's thought process. And have you asked them what they want? And the mind is like, no, because I need to just get on and do it. Okay, so we're spending 3 weeks trying to figure this out, where actually if we just ask the question, it requires 5% of that effort. It's like, what do they need? And it's putting the responsibility on people to effectively communicate and tell you what's needed here, what is needed in this situation from me and the other person. But don't be afraid to ask. Just ask.
Yeah. And also get out of their way. If they're the experts and they know how to go and deliver or open up a manufacturing plant or do the purchasing for a certain product from India or do all of those things, and that's what you've hired them for, stay out of their way.
And that requires trust though, right? And
that does require
you've just
trust.
Triggered something of what I also come across in these conversations that we have, because these questions we're sharing, we literally have had them from clients multiple times. Like these are actual dilemmas we've supported people with. And I think the reason that people don't communicate this stuff is fear that people are gonna leave, fear that, there's almost a lack of trust that if I give this individual, if I tell this individual something, they're going to make it mean something, or they're going to do something else with it. So there's almost that trust of what you were just saying, of like, if they're the expert, trust that they know how to have that conversation, trust that they know how to adapt and do something with it, or help them adapt. What do they need? Now they've got this information. What does that mean to them? How do they feel? Like, have a conversation. But I think there's the trust that what will happen is what is the right thing to happen. And equally, if that role potentially isn't going to be there, or there's potential risk of changing workforce or numbers and things, I recognise that we can't just go blurting that out and sharing that. But it's also where can we where can we give people security and safety as far as they need to know? Yeah.
In every conversation, there's a boundary of sorts, and from a leadership perspective and the way you grow in the leadership space, there are certain things that will not be useful to share, and the way that I kind of look at it is sometimes, I mean, you were a worker bee once, and then you became a leader. But nothing's really changed about you. You still want to be included in that space. And so from a leadership point of view, it's a stewardship. So don't hold too tightly onto the knowing, or I was the expert, and that so now you need to listen to me, and those kind of things. You're just stewarding that role. And giving the comfort in that, in the knowing that everyone around you is helping you to succeed in a particular space, and you're helping someone else succeed by offering either advice or direction or mentoring or making a decision that's tough, that you then carry the burden of. Those kind of things are things that sit in the leadership space for you to steward rather than hold on to.
Yeah, that's a really great point. The other thing I just want to touch on before we finish, because I'm conscious we've took this whole session to talk about this, but this is such an interesting question that we see it in multiple ways, right? And I'm thinking, how, from a leader knows they have this thought, but a leader can do something about it. If you're the owner, the director, the leader, the person making the decisions, you can do something about this. You can go and get some advice, you can go and get some support, you can talk about with your leadership or management team. But how does a leader or a manager know if their staff are sitting having these thoughts? Because we come across it interestingly, where it comes out the most for us is through our culture surveys. So when we work with people, we run culture surveys. They're completely anonymous, and we get some. That's where we get the juiciest information because people feel safe to share. So how do people know what their team are feeling? Like, how can they identify that?
It's an easy question to ask, but a difficult one to answer, in the sense that how truthful will someone be if you ask that question to you? Are they protective of their own thoughts, and they don't necessarily want to share something with you because you're the leader and you might be annoyed by them, and because you're their leader, they won't see any progress or won't be promoted or things like that. So it's how do we create an environment where there is no judgment, where people can speak freely, regularly about improvements, and you meet with your team either once every day, depending on the project, or once on a weekly or monthly. And whatever we do in that, the first question we should ask is, how can we solve for something that's in your way? And now we become a solution-seeking discussion in the front end of our discussions with our teams, to build regular feedback as to how we can improve things. And it might be a behavioral thing. It might be, guys in manufacturing aren't speaking to the guys in the sales field. How do we bridge that gap? Let's have a clear conversation about what we can do about that. And so now, talking about things that are getting in my way for progress of doing my work are conversations that are happening a bit more freely, which I feel will facilitate a true offering of information if you ask the question directly. So it's cultivating that for your team.
So that's the long kind of solution, isn't it? Of like creating safety and trust, and that stuff takes time, doesn't it? To create psychological safety in a workplace, it takes time. So whilst you kind of building that and creating that, there's practical things. I think that if someone becomes really aware, they may kind of see, and it might be like people haven't done what they expected them to do. So like missed expectations, people not doing what they've been asked because they weren't sure if it was their responsibility, or people maybe quietly disengaging or just become a little bit more withdrawn from the process, or maybe they behaving differently about getting permission to do certain things, or feeling like they haven't got the authority to deliver what they used to deliver. So there's change. I think there's slight changes in behaviours from people that might indicate something like that playing out, which then if you create the right environment, you can have that very honest, direct question of, what's going on? Are our expectations aligned and things like that? But also don't be afraid of running. I know it's difficult in small businesses, but like some kind of anonymous survey, like those things are cheap to get nowadays. It's not like you could create your own on Google Forms if you really wanted to. Like it's that accessible. But they don't have to be as complex and in-depth as ours, right? But I do recognize that there's still a limitation when it comes from the business and it's not independent, because there is the results, whereas our clients don't see the exact results that we get. We take it and use it to manage how we support and deliver. And whilst they get a general feedback and if there's anything of concern, but something like that, we would kind of put into how are we communicating people's roles and responsibilities? How are we communicating the vision to the rest of the business? So that would instigate those discussions. It wouldn't be, he's a person, this is exactly what they said, this is exactly what they wrote, because we want to keep that anonymous, don't we? So I understand there is restriction if you do that kind of thing internally, but still, you could still do it.
It gives you a perspective. Now there's two lines of thought that I have here. The one is, are you going to do anything about it? Have you got the self-awareness and emotional intelligence to adjust to feedback offered, irrespective of where it's coming from? So that's one area of a discussion that needs to happen. when we were speaking about consistently asking about what we can help you solve to help you actually deliver a piece of work quicker and sooner for you, it's doing that consistently, not just once in a blue moon, because then people also habitually resist giving you information around that space. So it's there are nuances to it, but it is actually quite simple in the fact that consistently asking how you can help someone else do their
and
job
also
better.
It should be built into your touch points of catch-ups, PDPs, like formal and informal, right?
Yes. And the second thing is put your ego aside.
That's the biggest challenge, right?
Wow.
We all have one.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're coming to the top of the hour. We're coming to the end of our session. But thank you, Tienie. Really good discussion. And I hope you enjoyed our slightly different format in what we're going to do. And I just want to share what we're going to actually talk about next week. So I think that will be interesting so you can see the kind of thing that we're going to talk about. So I hope you got some interesting stuff from today. If that resonated, if you're coming across that challenge within your small business, you know, if you want to share anything in the chat, in the comments, or our inbox is always open on LinkedIn. So please do reach out. So the question we have got next week is what we get. I think we get asked probably the most is, how do I get my team to do what I ask? And I think that is there's so much nuance to that. There's so many layers to that, and there's so much to talk about. But fundamentally, just real top level, like, how do I get my team to do what I ask? We're going to be talking about that next week. So please do come back, tune in, listen to wherever you get your podcasts. And that's us for today, Tienie. Thank you so much. Any final reflections?
No, just thinking of next week, it's how are you setting and managing expectations? That's how that's where we can start.
And explore that in more detail. We could probably talk over like 3 weeks about that answer, that question. To be fair, there's so much more. Yes. Awesome. Right. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of the week.
Thank you. And you.